Hi guys, welcome to With Whit on YouTube. Hey guys, I'm Whitney Port and this is With Whit. A lot of you may know me from reality TV, and the reality is a lot's happened since the hills. With Whit is dedicated to having real, raw, and occasionally ridiculous conversations with the people who have had a profound impact on me. Life-changing moments, life-changing people. Because on With Whit, very little is off limits. Hi everyone. Today we have a special and a little bit sensitive episode, but I have my husband Timothy here who's going to be leading the charge today interviewing me, and I will be the guest. So everybody please welcome our host Timothy Rosenman to the show.
Nice. And then they can insert clapping noises.
Everyone's clapping in their cars right now. Keep your hands on your steering wheels, guys.
The reason I'm hosting this one is because we're going to be discussing sort of a sensitive topic that happened and is currently happening to both Whitney and I. We were pregnant, and unfortunately, Whit had a miscarriage and we lost the pregnancy.
We want to preface this conversation with the fact that this is obviously a very personal and intimate conversation, and there are a lot of heavily charged opinions behind it. I do want to acknowledge that some people will have different opinions as me and may not agree with me, but the reason why I do this podcast and I do my YouTube is to share my opinion and how I have gone through it, in the hopes that maybe there are a few of you that feel the same way. I know of plenty of people who have not had children yet or have had to go through IVF and long processes of trying to get pregnant who this has happened to, and it has been completely devastating, and I feel for them, and I would feel the same way if I were them, but I have a different journey and a different experience.
People are always asking us, when are you going to have another kid? And what were your sort of general feelings on that topic?
My reaction to that always had a little bit of shame behind it. Like, what I really wanted to say was, I don't even know if I want a second, but I felt too ashamed and guilty to even say that out loud.
Why? Like, what do you think the other person started thinking in their head after you said that?
I think the other person probably started thinking, like, why did this person even have one if she doesn't even like to be a mom that much, you know? And
there's sort of this, and correct me if I'm wrong, this like feeling that if you're not in love with being a mother, then you're not a good mother. Is that fair?
100%.
And is that true?
It is so untrue. It's not only that we're afraid that other people are going to think that we're bad moms because we're complaining, but it's us judging ourselves for it.
Right. Okay. So this was your thought process while deciding if you wanted to have another kid. Tell me about getting pregnant.
Basically what happened was I stopped taking my birth control. I think what I wanted to happen was for us to get pregnant without having to have the conversation and without having to try, and for it to kind of be out of my control. So if this happens on its own, then amazing, it is meant to be, and we will have a second child. And if it doesn't happen, then we'll discuss it when we feel we're both ready to have it.
Just walk me through quickly the finding out.
I was in New York for work. I was insanely busy and I was feeling like total crap. I was sleeping 12 hours a night, and then I would wake up and want to go right back to sleep. And I was having the same feelings that I remember having when I found out I was pregnant the first time. So I waited until I got home to take the test because I wanted to be with you and I wanted to be in the comfort of our own home. And I got home at night and I peed on a stick, and I came out with the stick and there was only one line on it. And so I thought, oh, I'm not pregnant, but I now should probably figure out why I feel so sick. Anyways, long story short, my sister was there with us, and we waited another 30 seconds and the other line showed up, and she was like, Whitney, you are pregnant. I felt scared because of all the sacrifices and what I was going to have to go through again to have this child and to be a mom. But I was also scared just to even admit that I was scared. I felt extremely ashamed and and guilty that I felt this way. And so just these layers of shame and guilt make it so hard to talk about. I was really excited about the thought of Sunny having a sibling and the thought of having another adorable, amazing, cute kid like Sunny. But the majority of me was really, really scared, and I felt really selfish. I remember just feeling like, gosh, am I just the most selfish person for naturally feeling this way?
How do you go about telling or not telling people?
You and I decided to tell certain close people in our life because that's just the kind of people you and I are. We don't really like to keep secrets. So to a lot of our best friends and people that we work with closely, we told people. For a lot of people in the first trimester, things are very delicate and a lot can go wrong. And I think people don't want to have to tell people if something does go wrong, which is really sad because I feel like it makes the idea of miscarriage this mystery and this shameful, secretive thing that it doesn't actually have to be. The more people you tell, the more support you have when something like a miscarriage happens, the easier it will be to get through it because you have this army of friends and family that's there for you and can talk you through it. What's weird is that I was having like massive pregnancy symptoms for the first like 6 weeks. I was really nauseous and really exhausted, and all of a sudden they kind of just stopped, and I was like, oh my God, maybe the second pregnancy is going to be amazing and I'm not going to feel all this crap that I felt. And I was really thinking like glass half full at that moment. And then something hit me while we were in Vermont about 2 weeks ago. And I remember saying to you, like, Timmy, I feel like I'm not pregnant. It's so weird, but I just feel like I don't have any symptoms anymore. And then the next day I woke up and I saw blood on my underpants.
And that can be two different things, right?
Yeah. So when I was pregnant with Sunny, I had the same thing happen at the same exact time. And I called my doctor and he said spotting is completely normal. And it can be the period of implantation or just your body getting rid of old blood. So it can be a normal thing. So when I first saw it, I wasn't really like too alarmed. So we waited a day and we just let things happen and hoped that it would stop. And then the next day woke up and we saw that there was more blood. I called my doctor at home and he said to go get an ultrasound. We went to go get an ultrasound and my doctor said things didn't look good, but that it was still kind of too early to tell. And he said to wait it out.
So how do you feel now that you're in this like limbo position?
It felt so horrible to be in this limbo position, to be out of control and not know what was going on inside my body was so frustrating for me. I just wanted an answer. So we ended up going back to the emergency room for a second time because the bleeding got worse, and we got confirmation that my blood level was at a 3,000, and at the point I was in my pregnancy, it's supposed to be at about a 10 to 20,000, and we found out that there was no heartbeat and there should have been a heartbeat at that point. So we got confirmation while we were in Vermont that this was not a viable pregnancy. And I then needed to get home and figure out a plan, which I didn't even know what that meant. When we got the confirmation that it wasn't a viable pregnancy, how did you feel about it?
I mean, I was sad, you know what I mean? But I wasn't. The weirdest part of this whole thing to me is the level of sadness that I feel I'm allowed to have or not have. Mm-hmm. I'm sad, but we moved on. Like, I shed some tears, but we moved on, and then I stopped myself and I'm like, well, if a baby died, like you would be heartbroken for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. So what's the difference between this and a baby? And I started having all these existential thoughts in my head about when life begins and when it doesn't. We can save that for another episode.
Can I just say one thing? I just feel like there may be people out there that think that it was irresponsible of me to not basically practice safe sex if I didn't know if I was ready to have a second kid. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't know what you want until something happens. Mm-hmm. And I think as humans we're allowed that. And 100%. So I know that I may be defending myself to something that don't need to yet, but I just feel that. I feel like if I were listening to this, I'd be like, well, Whitney, why would you even have sex without a condom or not take your birth control if you knew you weren't ready? That's really irresponsible. Like, this is a living being that you could possibly be bringing into the world.
Right. Well, I think we were ready for the responsibility should it have worked out.
Yes.
And we would have done the right thing
100.
and, you know, raised our child. You know what I mean? So, and I think you're totally right. First of all, there's never going to be a right time. So everyone has to get into this situation not knowing if it's the perfect timing or not, you know?
And that is the case. Like, if this pregnancy was viable, like, although I may not have thought it was the right timing, or I would have been a little bit stressed in terms of balancing things, like, we would have had the baby and it would have been amazing and I wouldn't have regretted it.
No.
But I didn't have control over this situation.
So we come home and it's been a long 2 weeks of travel, but we made the best of it. So this is the stuff that I didn't know. Like, I thought women had a miscarriage, and like,
Same.
I don't know what I thought in my head, and sorry if this is graphic, but I thought like you just like something happened in the toilet and then like you weren't pregnant anymore and like you just went about your life, but that is not the case.
So once we got home and met with the doctor, he told us that we had 3 different options. The first option was just to let your body do it naturally, which just means to continue to bleed, and then you would start cramping and hemorrhaging blood, and you don't know how long this process can go, and you don't know when exactly it's going to happen. So that was the first option. The second option is to take a pill that makes it happen faster. It makes you start to cramp faster, and it makes you actually like shed the pregnancy faster. And you do that on your own at home, and you also are in pain, and you don't know exactly how long it's going to take. And then the third option is called a DNC, where you go and basically have it surgically removed. And I didn't know what I wanted to do right away. I mean, it was so much for me to take in, because I, like you, didn't even know that I had to make a choice to do something about it. I thought my body just did it on its own. And so this just made me feel like even more at a loss of control. And I really wanted someone to tell me what to do. I wanted my doctor to tell me what to do. And I soon realized that it's not something that they can tell you what to do. This is such a personal thing that you have to, like, decide on your own. And I talked to a couple people that had gone through it and ultimately decided that I needed this to just happen the fastest and easiest way possible. And for me, that was the DNC. I didn't want to be in any pain. I didn't want to be
on your own,
on my own. I didn't want to visually see the blood and see it come out of me. And so on Tuesday, I got the DNC, and I feel like I did the right thing for myself.
I mean, there's no
right or wrong.
Well, there's no wrong.
No, of course.
Thing to do.
Of course.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
In the limbo period, do you remember wanting the pregnancy to be viable? Was there any part of you that didn't want it to be viable?
I feel so bad saying this. Like I honestly feel like a complete monster for saying this, but when I found out that the pregnancy was possibly not vital, I thought to myself, maybe this is sort of a relief. Like, I felt so not overwhelmed in life, because I am so grateful for my life right now, but I did feel professionally like I was in one of the busiest times of my life, and I felt like this timing was really terrible to be pregnant. And so there was part of me when we were in limbo that was like, if this isn't going to happen, I think I'm okay with it.
I mean, I can appreciate how complicated those feelings are.
And I didn't want to tell you. And I remember being in the car on the way to the hospital and saying it to myself in my head, and being like, can I even say this to Timmy? Like, can I even say this to this person that, like, is he going to be so hurt and think I'm such a terrible person for even thinking this?
No. I think your reservations about having a baby make total sense. And a lot of other people might share them. And if they don't, who cares? They're your feelings, and I really do validate them. And so if that pregnancy were to end, especially at such an early state before it even has a heartbeat, or you know what I mean, like, feeling relief makes sense to me, and it doesn't make you a horrible person or a bad mother. In fact, the fact that you can admit something that makes you so vulnerable just proves how sensitive and great you really are.
Thank you, but like, do you ever feel like, not that you wish you married someone else, because I know that you're happy to be married to me, but do you ever feel like I was, that wanting to be a mom was something that came more natural to me, or that I was more positive about it?
No, like, I don't think it's healthy to try and like take your situation and wish that like parts of it were slightly changed. Like, sure, like people can have those thoughts, but I don't dwell on them. Like, I like our life, and I don't wish that like we lived in a house that was just like a slightly different color or something like that. Like, it's not worth it. It's not helpful to me. And so like, since you know that I want to have multiple kids, do I wish that you were on my exact same page? Yes,
Yeah.
but I'm not trading in anything for like a different model wife.
It's just so hard to actually believe. Like, I believe you because you, like, I know you wouldn't lie to me. I know you're always honest with me, and you would tell me if you were like disappointed in me or upset or whatever. But
I think I would only be disappointed if you were having these feelings and didn't share them. Like,
mhm,
you're being honest, and that's important. Like, I don't want to have, and I've said this a bunch of times, I don't want to have like a ton of kids just because I want to. I only want to do it if you want to. And like,
mhm,
when Sonny gets old enough, like, I only want to do stuff that the three of us want to, you know. I mean, he was not going to want to go to school, and he's going to have to do that, but like, I only want to do stuff that's in our collective best interest. Now that
yeah,
it's over, you've had the DNC.
yeah.
First of all, how are you feeling? Are you feeling relieved? Are you feeling sad? How do you feel today?
I feel, I can't I can't say I feel relieved. I feel sad because the whole thing is just traumatic. It's traumatic to think about your body going through this and something being in you that could have been someone like a Sunny or something. It's I feel sad, but um I do also feel happy that my body is still my own right now. And that this isn't like an extra thing we have to plan for.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
What do you tell
I
yourself about why it happened?
um, I tell myself that my body is not robotic and it doesn't behave perfectly, and it's so intricate and things can go wrong that are out of your control, and that's what happened. Like, I'm trying to look at it as like, my body can get the flu, like it can get sick. So this was just another way of my body getting sick in a way.
Right, and that's something that I learned too, because I just thought, since Sonny came on his due date and you're such like a specimen, that you were just a factory and you would just produce like perfect children every time. And I don't like, I still think you're fantastic and a specimen and perfect in every way, but that's, that's not realistic. And I
Mm-mm.
think it sort of prepared me for our life together, and like us getting sick and us having to deal with that, and it made me think about those things in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
There are so many things that are out of our control, and this is one of them, and we have to release them.
yeah.
I still feel a little bit unsettled about the second kid conversation, because even as I'm telling people that this is happening, people are like, well,
You can try again.
when can you try again?
Right.
When did the doctor say you'll be ready again?
And
And
that
it's
was
like,
my last question was second kid question mark.
like logically speaking, like I want to give Sunny a second kid, but in my heart and like my gut right now, it does not feel ready.
Are you telling yourself it's not the right thing to do because you're scared to do it? Or like can you kind of switch your thinking and think like just because I'm scared to do it doesn't mean that it's not the thing to do? Does that make sense?
I want to get to that second place.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like I may never be 100% sold on the idea. Like I'm always going to be a little bit scared. There never may be the right time, but I want to get to a place where I can still feel those things but also be excited and willing to do it.
Sometimes we're supposed to trust our gut and sometimes we're not. Like I
Yeah.
really didn't want to go to camp. Like I was scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I got there and I was still scared.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was great.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike a lot of other people, you not only have to go through the miscarriage,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to relive it on camera. How does that factor into the whole situation?
So we have consciously decided to have these types of conversations on our YouTube and on the podcast because it has become so important for me that people be able to feel their feelings and not feel guilty about it and know that other people feel the same way. If I did not talk about this on this platform, I would feel even more guilty about the whole thing because I feel like I have a responsibility to all you guys so that you don't feel alone and that you don't feel the same way that I felt in my own head when I found out this was happening. However, having to relive it and retell the story and be sensitive to all the people out there that have different experiences and have to think about what I'm going to say and not just be done with it has been emotionally draining for me. I mean, the other night I broke down. I was like, I literally just can't do this anymore. Like, I don't want to deal with the technicalities of planning to have this conversation again. Like, can it just be over? It was already enough for us to deal with.
Right. I can completely understand that. Like you want the situation to be behind you, but it's prolonged because you are recording it. And
Yes.
not only is it like prolonged, but it's like painstaking. Like we're doing this ourselves. We're setting up the cameras. We're worrying about the organization of it. And on top of that, it's a sensitive topic and we don't want to offend anyone or say the wrong thing. Like it's a lot of extra shit on top of something that's already kind of shit.
At the end of the day, it's so much more important that this conversation is out there forever for people to listen to so that they feel some validation. And like I said, don't feel so alone. Like I need to just suck it up and sacrifice this for the greater good. And I know that I don't want to sound like
you're a martyr for everyone.
Yes.
But also what I was going to say, when it's all done and when we put this up, when we start getting the feedback, how will that make you feel?
I hope that the feedback is okay and that people don't think I'm a monster. And if it is good feedback like that, I think that I will be able to be more at peace about this whole thing and that will make it all worthwhile. This is the exact same feeling I had after we recorded the first episode of I Love My Baby, But I Hate My Pregnancy. I was terrified to put that episode up. I had never been that vulnerable before, and I thought people were going to think that I was such a terrible person. And I feel that way now, but
it's sort of a roll of the dice.
Exactly.
I know it feels that way because it's I mean, I'm here too, and this happened to me as well.
Yeah.
But I know it's you.
Yeah.
I know you're putting yourself out there. And I can appreciate it feeling scary, but ultimately this is going to be, I think, a really good thing for you.
I do think, though, that for the people that have not had the same experience as me and do feel devastated and depressed after something like this happens, which I know many and most people do, that talking about it is just as important. because
it's horrible
it's
that this
horrible.
miscarriage situation, not only is it horrible, but that people don't talk about it, because you never told anyone you were pregnant in the first place. And so even if they don't identify with your
Take
feelings on
on
the
it.
situation, just the fact that we're having this conversation and they can go have their own conversation about their experience, I think is important.
Agreed. And I think that they will be surprised by how many other women have actually gone through this.
I'm happy that we're talking about it. I know this is hard for you, but I'm proud of you for talking about it and putting yourself in a vulnerable position. But I think everything will end up okay.
I know it will end up okay. The biggest thing I want anyone to get out of this is that whatever reaction you have to a miscarriage is okay. Whether you are a little bit relieved, whether you're devastated, whatever it is, like, to not overanalyze or feel guilty for how you're feeling. I hope that people can always use my platform to share their stories and share their opinions and know that it's a really welcoming place to have these kinds of conversations if they feel like they can't go anywhere else.
Even though making yourself vulnerable is scary for totally real reasons, that's sort of when like the good happens. And the more you make yourself vulnerable, I think the stronger and more courageous you are, and ultimately the more you'll get that will help you deal with these difficult situations. And that I'm proud of you that you do this.
Thank you.
No matter what anyone comments or says. Like, I know who you are, and you're an amazing mother and person, and I'm really proud that you put yourself out there.
Thank you very much.
And I'd like to announce that I'm the new full-time host of With Whit, and we're going to be adding in some new topics like sports and restaurants I like to go to. So tune in for With Whit next week.
He's kidding, you guys.
Yeah, I'm leaving. We're going to get more about wedding planning. What about juices?
Okay. Love you all. Thank you guys so much for listening. And as always, feel free to leave your comments below. And
Peace in the streets.
peace in the streets.